look at that. But so duplexes are treated under the IRC as residential. And then when we get into multiple units, 3 and more, they're treated a little bit differently. So the fire separation between a single family dwelling and a garage used to be 5/8 inch type X gyp, floor to roof sheathing on the garage side. The door that is in that wall, typically most houses, you go from the garage into the kitchen. And that's supposed to be 1 3/8 inch, solid core, self-closing. And so it can either be a self-closer that usually only works the day that it's installed if you buy a cheap one. They also make some self-closing hinges that you can put on there. And or you can use a 20-minute fire door that's labeled. Most of those are metal clad, not all of them, but most of them are metal clad. Now, the assembly, the frame around the door, though, does not need to be fire rated. They have run some tests where I think they could get those pine jambs around the door to burn through in about 5 minutes. But I have seen a number of garages where they had the garage fire. The garage burnt to the ground. The fire door was pretty well shot, needed to be replaced after the fire. But the house itself was in pretty good shape. Where most people get into trouble with the insurance company and with the fire is a lot of people like to cut a hole in that firewall between the garage and the house so they can throw stuff up in the attic without dragging it through the house. And then they just leave the hole there. So if you're going to do that, then you need a 1 3/8 inch solid core self-closing door, which may be a lot smaller, but you still need that in that firewall. So now you don't need the 5/8 type X. All that's required under the IRC is the 1/2 inch gyp board, floor to sheathing, floor to roof sheathing, and that's it. If you have ductwork that's going through the firewall, that's supposed to be at least 26 gauge sheet metal. So you can't use plastic or flex duct going through the wall. The actual penetration has to be done with sheet metal. A lot of times we'll have
that's just for air going in, right? You can't have the air pulling out, or you can have both as long as it's the metal.
No, well, I don't think there's a specific requirement on that. I'd have to go back and do some research on that. It just says that the sheet metal going through it. Let me see if I can find that here.
Yeah, but if it's an intake going from the garage into the house through the fire rated wall, you have to have a fire door on it.
Yeah, let me see.
So you don't transfer fire from one room to the other.
Yeah, that class yesterday was quite the doozy.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. Well, that is in the IRC. Let me see if I can find that. That's all in chapter 3. And if I look a little funny, it's because I did something to my back the other day, so. We need to go back to.
Did you say you hurt your back, Larry?
Yeah, I tweaked it.
That's not good.
How's your dad doing, by the way?
He is sore, but coming along. He's doing really well, thank you.
Okay, no heart attack?
No heart attack. He's got a gnarly scar, but he's starting to heal, so it's good. It came out really good.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, he's back at home being ornery as ever, so that's really a good sign.
Oh, well, excellent. Now let me see. I'm in chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
And I want to see what page am I on. That's 111. Computer's running a little slow. So let me look in the index and I'll find out what page it's on, maybe. So I know it should be in chapter 3.
Stupid computer.
I got it for the 302.5.2 duct penetration.
302.5. Okay. You know what page that's on?
It's on page 60 of the 2018 IRC.
Okay. Let me see if I can get close to that. I think it's beyond that stuff.
It says number 26 gauge sheet steel
Yeah.
or other approved material shall not have openings into the garage.
Well, like I said, my computer is, for some reason, running slow. I'm still in the design stuff. So you said 302?
Yeah, 302.5.2 is
Okay.
duct penetration.
Yeah, I'm headed there. Yeah, 302 is fire resistant construction. So let me see if I can share the screen. Okay, hopefully you can see some, says building planning in the upper left-hand corner. Yay, nay?
Yep. I see it.
Okay. All right. So almost all the building planning stuff is in chapter 3. So anything with a 300 number comes out of this chapter. So that's not what I wanted. How did I get there? Close. Want to be in 302. How did I get to? Let's look. 70. 70. There we go. We're getting close. Okay, I think hopefully. So this is the load section 301. So wind, earthquake, all of that comes out of that R301 section. This live load over here on the right, 301.5, that's something that comes up for, in particular, uninhabitable attics without storage. You see, you have to be designed for 10 pounds a square foot, and with limited storage, you can go up to 20 pounds. But if they say storage, then you're going to have to add a lot more. The big one is the guards and handrails, or the guardrails and handrail. See where they show 200 pounds? And there's a footnote, which is H. I think that says H, which is a little lower. There's also D. And so that 200 pounds is a single concentrated load applied in any direction at any point along the top. So that's supposed to keep you from falling off. And H I
No H.
need to go the other direction.
I got H right here.
Okay.
This is glazing used in handrail assemblies and guards shall be designed with a safety factor of 4.
Right. So
Continues on.
So that's always a problem from a plan check standpoint. Now 302 gets into fire resistant. They talk about exterior walls. So walls, projections, openings, or penetrations in walls perpendicular to the line used to determine the fire separation distance. So there has been a change in the code. Originally, we measured everything perpendicular to the property line. Nowadays, we measure everything perpendicular to the structure.
Why did they change it to that?
I don't know. It just seemed
Sit-
like a good thing to do.
Thing sitting cattywampus on the property?
Yeah. But we used the property lines were pretty well fixed, and so that was just in the old uniform building code, which we used for years. We measured perpendicular to the property line. Now you measure the distances perpendicular to the building. So we've also have a requirement that for new construction, with the few exceptions, you have to put in a sprinkler system for a single family dwelling or duplex. There is an exemption for companion units because they're trying to keep them cheap. So your walls, 1 hour, if you're at 5 feet, if you're greater than 5 feet from the property line, you don't need any fire resistance. In the old uniform building code, you could go up to 3 feet. Within 3 feet of the property line, you didn't need fire protection. For single family, multifamily, had to be
You know him though.
5 feet. So anyway, projections. So those are things that stick out beyond the wall. Here in the very high fire hazard zone, which is most of the county, generally you need a heavy timber or 1 hour overhang. You can't just have exposed 2x framing and 1x T&G, which is what we used for years. We don't care about the openings in walls, exterior walls. You can look through all of that stuff. If you have questions, let me know. So the one up here, this is exterior walls. And this is if you have the automatic residential fire sprinkler protection. You can see that with this one, we can be within 3 feet. So we don't care too much about that. So parapets for townhouses, and townhouses are generally 2 or 3 stories, and we can't have postage stamp where there's an actual property line between them or an imaginary. And if at least 2 sides are open, then they can be treated like single family, but that's back in the very beginning. But if you have their stair step down a hill, which they often are in San Diego, then where the wall extends above the roof of the lower unit, you have to have a 1 hour extension going 30 inches above the lower roof for the adjacent unit. Parapets, general rule is parapets are required, but they give some exemptions for parapets. So if the wall that the parapet sits on is not required to be fire resistant, the parapet doesn't need to be have a fire rating. If it's less than, I believe it's 1,500 square feet above the second floor, it might be a little less than that, but anyway, there's a size limitation that if you're under that, you don't need a parapet. And if you do need a fire rated parapet, then the other upper 18 inches has to be non-combustible. So typically that's going to be sheet metal or maybe some hardy board, some of that cementitious wood board over chipboard over wood framing. That might be considered to be non-combustible face.
If if about 15 inches above, you said?
Upper 18 inches. So
18 inches, okay.
the upper
I see.
foot and a half. Parapet normally is a minimum of 30 inches tall above the roof. There are some cases where you have a sloping roof, and if it slopes very much, then it has to be higher than any portion within 10 feet. So somewhere I've got some pictures of that. Do I care about any of that? No. Two-family dwellings, though. Says dwelling units in a two-family dwelling, which to me sounds like a duplex, shall be separated from each other by a wall and floor assemblies having not less than 1 hour fire resistance rating per those ULs. And if you want, you can go on YouTube and you can see them run those tests. They have the ASTM E119 or the UL 263, and they have some examples of that test being run. And the exceptions there is a fire resistance rating of a half hour permitted in buildings equipped throughout with an automatic fire sprinkler system in accordance with NFPA 13. Now, most of the residential fire sprinkler systems are NFPA 13D. So 13D is the one that allows the orange plastic, and 13 requires the iron pipe. So that's the difference between the two. And they go on to tell you that the wall assembly doesn't need to extend through the attic where the ceiling is protected by not less than 5/8 inch type X chipboard, and you provide an attic draft stop between the two units. So
that would cover the duplex or multi-gen because that still falls under IRC. It's just the 1 hour unless there's a breaker and all that stuff.
yeah, we have to go
Okay.
back and look because there's some specific things that the IRC applies to, and then if you're not, don't meet the IRC requirements, you're into straight IBC or California Building Code. So here's our through penetrations. And they tell you got to look at these particular sections. Yeah, we can't. So these are pipes and things that go through the wall, which they often do. And, you know, they have to meet these particular types of requirements. Fire stop systems, if they're required, they're either F-stop or T-stop. So F-stop, it means that it's preventing flame from passing through the wall. T-stop is to limit the temperature rise across the assembly.
I see it right there, the dwelling garage opening.
Yeah, this is the new one. So, well, this has been around. So they haven't changed the door requirement, but the finish requirement on the garage side has reduced from 5/8 type X to 1/2 inch regular jip. But here we have the 1 3/8 inch solid or honeycomb doors, not less than 1 3/8 inch, or 20-minute fire rated fire doors equipped with self-closing or automatic closing and self-latching device. And again, we have a little bit of an exception. And that just says that where you've got the automatic sprinkler system in accordance with the other sections, usually this is 13D, it only needs to be self-closing and self-latching. So the automatic closing, it looks like they've left out of there. Duct penetration, ducts in the garage and ducts penetrating the walls or ceilings. constructed of minimum number 26 gauge sheet steel or other approved material and shall not have openings into the garage. So that means the duct, for example, shouldn't have a register on it in the garage. You know, typically it'll go from the appliance through the wall. And as long as it doesn't open directly into the garage, that's okay. So I don't know that.
So as
you
long as
couldn't-
it's contained within the appliance.
Right. So you couldn't have a grill coming through, but you could have a return air duct coming through if it somehow hooked into the appliance. As long as the appliance is installed in accordance with the listing, that's okay. So from a building,
Gotcha. Okay.
building inspection standpoint, if you're inspecting any appliance, water heater, a heater, air conditioner, the installation instructions are supposed to be there when you make the inspection, so you can go through there and verify that they've installed it according to the listing.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. And then so here's our dwelling, garage, and or carport fire separation. Now, a carport by definition has to be open on 2 or more sides. If it's not open on 2 or more sides, they call it a garage. But we have to look at this table 302.6. Openings we just looked at. Attachment of the gypsum board, we have to go to this table. And then the separation provisions, if you have the perpendicular walls don't have to be fire rated. So only the wall that's common with the dwelling. Or if it's at an angle, it's possible the building department may want protection for a certain distance. Under stair protection, and again, this is where in the older code, they wanted 5/8 type X, and now they tell you 1/2 inch gypsum under the stairs is okay. So, and this is enclosed space under the stairs that's accessed by a door or access panel. So if you're using it for storage under the stairs, that's where you have to have the 1/2 inch gyp board. So if it's just framed in, if there's a wall and it's just a space under there, then that doesn't have to be lined. We don't care about that stuff there. I don't care too much about that. Now here's this table 302.6. Dwelling, garage, and or carport separation from the residence and attics, not less than 1/2 inch gyp board applied to the garage side. If we have a habitable room above the garage or carport, then not less than 5/8 type X. And garages located less than 3 feet from a dwelling unit on the same lot. Again, same as if they were attached, not less than 1/2 inch gyp board or equivalent applied to the interior side of exterior walls that are within this area. So. And then fire blocking. So this is usually at frame inspection, there's a bunch of missing fire blocking. So horizontally at intervals not exceeding 10 feet, vertically at the ceiling and floor levels. If we've got a stud space that's over 10 feet, then we're supposed to block. If you have a soffit, which often will have a soffit, drop ceilings, cove ceilings, You need fire blocking at the where that transition is between the stud space and the soffit, so that if there was a fire, it can't readily go up through the stud space and get into the horizontal spaces. And then draft stopping is a little different. So fire blocking normally is 2x wood. So it's made out of 2x framing. So that's the fire blocking. Draft stopping is usually a sheet product. So usually we're using drywall or plywood. And so it says here, in combustible construction where there is usable space above and below the concealed space of a floor ceiling assembly, draft stop shall be installed so that the area of the concealed space doesn't go over 1,000 square feet. You want to set it up in such a way that it divides the area into approximately equal spaces. Doesn't say they have to be equal, just approximately equal. We don't care about that. And then the materials right here, not less than 1/2 inch chipboard or 3/8. I think this is plywood. So let's take a quick look. Yeah, wood structural panels or other approved materials. That's up to the building official. Draft stopping shall be installed parallel to the floor framing members unless otherwise approved by the building official. So they don't want you running it perpendicular to the floor joist, because if the floor joist burnt on one side, the whole floor would collapse. So they're trying to provide some protection for that concealed space. And no, I don't care about that. Fire protection of doors, but here's this NFPA 13D versus 13. So let me see if I can find something on that. Stop sharing for a moment. Pull something up. Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh, I know what I need to do. So let me see if I can get back to sharing. And I'll send you a copy. I'll try and get a copy of this or something similar. That must be that.
Oh,
So this is, I don't know, somebody's fire blog, but we got the difference between NFPA 13, 13R, and 13D. Residential sprinkler systems, for the most part, are 13D, and the commercial stuff is usually 13. So So they tell you here that 13R systems are designed primarily with the intent for the safety, extending the amount of time occupants have to escape a burning building. So usually in a house, you shouldn't have to go too far to get out. You've got your exits, and if it's a sleeping room, at least one opening in the sleeping room or room that could be used for sleeping has to meet emergency egress requirements, so you should be able to bail in a big hurry. And so you can look here, here's the NFPA 13R, 13D, which is primarily used for residential stuff. And you'll see while all these other things say, for the most part, yes, or have something in there, that 13D, no, permitted in 1 and 2 family or group R3 and R, blah, 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 yes, no. So this is that orange plastic pipe. The other ones require metal pipe. And then areas where you can omit the fire sprinklers in, again, for 13 and 13R, it's more restrictive than 13D. And I'm not going to get into hydraulic calculations. So it's just like designing a sprinkler system. So in a typical fire, what happens is these are the sprinkler heads. No, not what I was looking for. How did I get out of there? 1 or 2 sprinkler heads are typically activated during a fire. They're normally spaced about 12 feet on center in both directions. And if they're doing their job, only 1 or 2 are going to come on. I've mentioned several times, it's not like the movies. If they all went on at once, you just get a couple of drips out of all of them because too much water demands. So I think that's fine. But there's all kinds of stuff out there if you want to know. Normally, these need to be designed in the state of California. We have a classification known as fire engineer. And if you're designing the systems, you're supposed to be qualified and competent, although I believe a licensed contractor for installing these can do design work for a system they're going to install. So, but I'll send you something on that. Stop that for a moment. Go back to sharing. What time is it? Okay. And so here we are again. Fire protection floors. This is in the code. You can download this if you want. So combustible insulation clearance. Combustible insulation says shall be separated not less than 3 inches from recessed luminaires, fan motors, and other heat producing devices. They give you an exception. Says where heat producing devices are listed for lesser clearances. And what they're talking about there is the recessed lights. You have IC rated, which are insulation contact rated, and you have non-IC. The state of California requires that any recessed light sold in California, supposedly, are IC rated now. The energy code requires that. So you don't have that They used to just cut the insulation and hold it back from the lights, and you can't do that anymore because it puts a hole in the insulation envelope. So that's what that thing was all about. Here's light, ventilation, and heating. So habitable rooms, again, under the Uniform Building Code, if you had a 100 square foot room, you needed a minimum of 10 square feet of glass in there to provide natural light. The new code, you only have to provide 8 square feet. So they've reduced the amount of glazing. And I think
8%.
that had to do with the energy code also, trying to reduce the heat loss in a building. Now, if 8% is for the light, and then half of that needs to be openable if it's going to provide ventilation. So you're normally required to provide light and ventilation. You can provide mechanical ventilation. So, but that's what this says up here. This openable area to the outdoors shall be not less than 4% of the floor area being ventilated. If you don't open the window though, it's not going to happen. So they've
That
got
was one of
some,
my quiz questions, was the mechanical ventilation.
okay.
Like how many air changes per hour was 5 changes per hour.
Yeah, I think that's the bathroom. I don't think you need that many changes in a regular habitable room, but certainly in a bathroom, that's, I think, what the requirement is.
What test did you take, Chad?
It's just a WC3 Academy. It's my mom's company. She works for out of Utah. They have
Alright.
online bundles for residential, electrical, plumbing, mechanical. So I just go through the module. It basically breaks it down step by step, and it's tough, but like trying to understand this stuff is just like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Yep.
Well,
Right on.
sometimes. So, but some of this, we can take a look at. So I know most people aren't overly excited about the codes themselves. And so again, the energy code in California takes precedent over the requirement. So this, so they say that bathrooms, water closets, you can use, used to be windows not less than 3 square feet, 1/2 of which had to be openable. But now you have to provide a fan in a bathroom that's hooked to a humidistat. And that's to get rid of the excess humidity. So I think when it's between, what is it, 50% or higher, then that fan is supposed to kick on and exhaust the air out of the bathroom at a certain rate.
Supposed to get help with the mold issues.
Yeah. And so this is a California modification to the code. So you see the italics here. It says each bathroom containing a bathtub shower or tub shower combination shall be mechanically ventilated for purposes of humidity control in accordance with the California Mechanical Code Chapter 4 and the California Green Building Standards Code. And they say Chapter 4, Division 4.5. Note, window operation is not a permissible method of providing bathroom exhaust for humidity control. And that is something specific to California with regards to the residential code. Now, for ventilation, it used to be in this document, but they tell you to go look at the mechanical code. There's another one that comes up and sneaks up on people sometimes, intake openings and exhaust openings. Exhaust air shall not be directed onto walkways. So if you got a walkway around the building, quite often the fan will come out and it will discharge directly over that walkway. So you're not supposed to do that. Anything else there?
You live in the snow, it'd melt the ice.
Yeah, well, that's true. So, but how the local jurisdiction is actually going to enforce that will vary from place to place. And this was a change here, the required heating. I'm not going to go into the interior illumination, but you used to have to be able to heat the room if it was a conditioned space to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and now it's 68 degrees. Yeah, that's from the energy code. Minimum size.
It's crazy
room.
to see the.
Pardon?
It's crazy to see the small changes between so I'm on the 2018 IRC, and you're on the 2019 California code.
Well, this
the
is
small
based
changes.
right. This is based on the 2018 IRC. However, the state of California has made a bunch of little tweaks to it. And that's why you have to be careful when you go to a building department, because they may have modified the code. So most of the modifications with regards to ventilation and light have to do with the California Energy Code. Now, some of that, though, they've put in the green codes, and some of that is in the mechanical code. Room sizes haven't changed too much. 70 square feet is still the minimum. This is a big change over what we had, say, 10 years ago. It used to be minimum height of a room, habitable room, was 7'6", and now it's only 7 feet. You used to have at least 7 feet in a bathroom or a hallway. They've reduced the bathroom to 6'8", minimum height. And then if you have a sloping ceiling, that's measured a little bit different. So sanitation, you're required. Every dwelling unit has to have a water closet, a lavatory, and a bathtub or shower. Kitchen, I tell you what you're going to provide. Kitchen has to be provided with
I think.
yeah, I think a sink, but I think there's hot and cold water too. No, this just says the sink. So it's in the plumbing code, I think, the requirement for hot and cold water.
I got it in the same one. It says water supply to fixtures,
Yeah.
elastic, and it says washing machine outlets. They list everything: bathtub, showers,
Yeah.
it's laundry
Yeah,
tubs.
so yeah, here it is. Yeah, here it is right here.
Hot, cold.
Yeah. Kitchen sinks, lavatories, bathtub, showers, bidets, laundry tubs, washing machine. Got to have hot and cold water. So. Space for the toilet, they just refer you to the plumbing code. Bathtub and shower. We've got the low flow requirements, and if you want to put in a shower with 42 heads, the flow out of the combined number of heads can't exceed what's allowed for a single shower head. Well, let me see, where are we? Oh, I guess we should take a quick break. And we come back and look at some pictures, I guess.
Pictures.
Larry, can you email us all that?
I think so. I think I should be able to pull this off. I don't know if I can pull it off this one, but I don't believe, if you notice most of this, there's no indication of changes from the previous code. So I'll probably pull it out of the 2015 code. For some reason, I can't do anything because of the standard they use as PDFA. So the previous version they had posted didn't, but I'll send this off. So, and I'll show you another place where you can find it. But
Thank you.
We'll take about a 15-minute break and
Yeah, but this
come
is
back
off of that from that site that you said that we can download it onto
yeah,
a thumb drive.
public.resource.org.
Yeah, okay.
You can download this. So
Yay.
let me stop the recording for now, since we're going.